My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be John and Mother Goose, Video 27, 2 Poems. Here's my novella, John and Mother Goose, The Carnival of Tales, John and Mother Goose on the cover, surrounded by fairy tale characters. While driving his granddaughter home from daycare, John suddenly finds himself standing in the midway of the Carnival of Mother Goose fairy tales. He's greeted by Jack, of Jack and Jill fame, who tells John that Mother Goose is expecting him as she has a role for him to play. But what does Mother Goose want? Why does she think John is a writer of detective stories? And why, when she meets John, does she greet him almost as a long-lost son? And for that matter, why do so many of the fairy tale characters have different stories that they want John to write for them instead of the ones in which they've lived for hundreds of years? John's not a mythical creature. He's only human, after all. But can he save the Mother Goose Carnival? Can he solve the mystery of the missing fairy tales? Well, in this video presentation, I'm going to read 2 poems. The premise of my novels and novellas is that we human beings think at the surface level of our minds in prose, in words of simple, clear statement, and that we think in the depths of our minds in poetry, not in simple, clear words, but in images, in words that are complex enough to respond to the complexity of the lives that we're living day by day. So in the mind of the main character of this novella, John, there are 2 poems, 2 packages of imagery. Poem 1 is a story of the sun, and poem 2 is a story of a drop of water. Instead, though, of reading poem 1 completely, and then poem 2 completely, I'm going to read them in the order in which they're printed in the text of this novella. Afterwards, we can speculate as to why they are printed this way. Okay? So let's go to page 4, and I will read from 2 poems. Okay, so I'm going to read from 2 poems alternately. Poem 1 is about the sun. The sun was a very moody fellow. He went from happiness to gloom and back again. Yet shone every day for many centuries. He felt as if he would shine until the end of time. Now that's verse 1 of the poem about the sun. Here's verse 1 of the poem about the drop of water. It was just a drop of water, just one tiny drop amid the torrent of a raging mountain stream. The drop considered its future as it flowed. Okay, now that was chapter 1. Let's go to chapter 2, and this will be page 9, for 2 more verses of 2 more poems, of the 2 poems. The sun poem. The sun was feeling deeply troubled. My rays cause everything to grow. I shine my rays in all directions, and everywhere a seed begins to stir. Well, that doesn't seem so troubling, but he's troubled. Okay, now we go to verse 2 of the poem about the drop of water. It had been a tiny ice crystal locked shoulder to shoulder inside a glacier for many thousands of years. It felt just like a mummy in a tomb. Okay, now we're going to go to the next chapter, page 16, for 2 more verses. Oops, one more page here. There we are. The sun poem. When I was young, thought the sun, I saw myself as a cleansing agent. I assumed I would wash all negatives down the drain, that I would be a new broom to sweep things clean. And now a verse about the drop of water. Global warming had set it free, and now the tiny drop of water raced eagerly down the mountainside. I wonder where I'll live. I wonder what I'll do. I have many years of life ahead of me. Okay, then from page 16 we go to page 24 for 2 more verses. Now, why are these poems interacting? What is one saying about the other and vice versa? That's the question. The sun. But I realized, to my horror, thought the sun, that I cause all things to happen. Every seed takes inspiration from my womb. And now the poem, actually 2 verses here. I think I made a mistake when I was writing this, so I put 2 verses in this chapter instead of 1. The torrent rushed along a canyon. The little drop was carried along. It dodged the jagged rocks of the mountainside. Not one other drop of water ever spoke to him. I'm sure that we were equally occupied. The sides of the canyon were steep. All the water stayed inside. The little drop thought of his future. Perhaps I will power industry, or raise a single plant in a pot. He wondered what his future was going to be. Okay, from 24 we go to 32 for 2 more verses that interact with each other, though they seem to be on entirely different topics. The Sun poem. The seeds of aging and corruption, the seeds of cruelty and of despair, thought the sun sadly, all stir when they feel the warmth of my regard. Now the poem about the drop of water. A stream ran through a desert. Many drops were drawn to the sky, but the little drop moved forward as the stream meandered on. I'm being saved for something. I wonder what it will be. And then from 32, we go to 42. The Sun poem. The greening of the grass? Yes. The birthing of tiny lambs, of course. The poking of daffodils through the snow, and the sprouting of seedlings of future's trees. All cheer me up each day as I watch them grow. And now the poem about the drop of water. The stream moved through a city in a bed with concrete sides. The drop came close to many an intake. Other drops were sucked away. Yes, I'm being saved for something. Something even more dramatic. Something to benefit, I'm sure, humankind. From 42, we go to 51. Again, what are these poems saying about each other? I am the sun. Nothing but the sun, nothing more and nothing less. I resemble an ox in a harness. I am fixed in a groove in the sky. And then the drop of water poem. Lush fields and luxurious vegetables. Perhaps irrigation will be my forte. But the little drop stayed in the stream, while many of his fellows were diverted aside. The little drop looked around him. This is my ideal destination. So here he is moving along near his ideal destination. Will he get to stop there is the question. We sometimes do come across ideal circumstances, and hopefully that's where we get to kind of put down roots. Okay, what did I say? 59 is next, I guess. Okay, the Sun poem. I do good, and I do harm, thought the sun. I have a will, I have a mind, I have ideas that bubble and boil, but I have no power to change the universe. And the poem about the little drop. The stream poured into a river. The river meandered on, past factories and schools and houses. All these places where I could flourish. The little drop floated on. Why have I not been called to service? I have so much to give. And from 59, we go to 65. Here we are. The Sun poem. I cannot change a single thing, thought the sun. I cannot move out of orbit. I cannot cease to burn. I cannot increase my heat or dial it down. The centuries will roll on as before. And the poem about the drop? The size of the mighty ocean, a congregation of billions of drops. The little drop was disappointed. I have never been called upon. This is like living in a glacier. I don't call this living at all. And then lastly, we go to page 70. So this is the last verse of each of these two poems, which have been commenting on each other. Yes, the son was a very moody fellow. He went from happiness to gloom and back again. He had shone every day for many centuries. He felt as if he would shine till the end of time. And the last verse of the poem about the little drop, either I will evaporate and start a new cycle of life, or I will be locked in this ocean, shoulder to shoulder with other drops for thousands of years. So those are the two poems, and I've read them interlayered, as they are interlayered in the novella because they are interlayered in the mind of the main character. So, why have I printed these two poems in alternating verses and not as complete poems? First the one about the sun and then the one about the drop of water, as poems are usually printed in books. Well, as I said, human beings think in prose on the surface of their minds, in clear, simple sentences, and they think in imagery in the depths of their minds, in clusters of imagery, and a cluster of imagery is a definition of a poem. So on the surface of his mind, John is living through an experience. He finds himself in the presence of Mother Goose and Jack of Jack and Jill fame, and he strolls up and down the midway of the Mother Goose Carnival of Tales while talking, alternatively to Mother Goose and to Jack, while watching the nursery rhymes being presented on the stage. All the time he's doing this and thinking in simple, clear sentences about this experience, he's trying in the depths of his mind, in the poetic depths of his mind, to figure out what possible meaning, what potential meaning this experience could have. And in doing so, in responding to the surface life experience, he thinks in imagery. And since imagery works by parallel and contrast, his mind at its greatest depths, its poetic depths, decides that it will juxtapose, set side by side, that's what juxtapose means, two poems, one about the sun and one about a drop of water. Now, what makes this book challenging to read is that the text does not include John's thoughts about the imagery of these two poems. All the text of this novella contains is, 3 dashes here. Number 1, the story of John walking up and down the midway and watching the presentation of the nursery rhymes. Number 2, the interviews that John has with a number of the nursery rhyme characters. And number 3, the imagery with which John responds to these experiences in the depths of his mind. So, where will the logical prose explanation, not only these two poems, but the entire experience come from? Well, it will come from the logical, clear, prose thinking level of the mind of the reader of this book. Poetic novels contain imagery. Prose novels contain prose. So this is my poetic novella, John and Mother Goose, The Carnival of Tales. It's found on Amazon. There's information there. It's found at my publisher's website, which is rocksmillspress.com. There's more information there. On my website, John Pasfield, all one word, johnpasfield.ca. There are 2 free books. I kept a planning notebook while I was planning and writing this novella. I wrote a reflective journal as I was polishing this novella. If you click on the cover icons, you can read those books for free. So have a look at johnpasfield.ca if you're interested. Lastly, I'll say thank you for watching this video.